And I'm sitting here with D. Bradley Baker. We are at San Diego Comic-Con 2013. And I know that you have worked on some stuff that was here at the con, so let's first talk about what was at the con that you worked on.
Yeah, my first day was a panel for I Know That Voice, which John DiMaggio, the great John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender, and a ton of other voices, he's overseeing, and it basically chronicles the history of voice acting and who's working in voice acting right now, most all of the A-listers. And it also speaks a lot about Comic-Con as well. And he just kind of assembled some Avengers of voice acting on that panel, and we had a really fun panel. I also did one for Phineas and Ferb, and that went beautifully.
And for that, your characters, I know you mainly
I'm Perry the Platypus on Phineas and Ferb.
Right.
Like that. That's a great, fun, creative show. I really love that show as a dad, because that's one you can watch over and over and over again, which is what kids like to do. And so that was spectacular. Yesterday we had a big panel in the gigantic hall for American Dad, which was also a lot of fun. And
on American Dad, you are Klaus.
I'm Klaus, the official American Dad. There I am in a little bowl. In American Dad.
And what did Rob Paulson say on the I Know That Voice panel about every time he hears that voice? He said, what was it? He said every time he hears that voice.
It just makes him happy. It makes him happy to hear me speak with a German accent. Or to speak in German, which I will do.
It was really funny to see the reactions on that panel when you started doing Klaus. I think everybody loves that.
Yes.
So.
Well, I have a real fondness for the German language, because I speak it, and I spent a year in school there, and I studied German writers and philosophers, and it just... It's kind of a forgotten language in this company, or in this country rather, since basically the 20th century, and it's a fun little thing to pop out and show everyone.
And now we're going to go back to other things you've been doing here, but so with the German language and also the philosophy thing, because I remember I've heard you mention that somewhere else before, but with German, a question. When you go in and a director maybe says like they're looking for a German voice, do you ever do German and they say, oh, that's too authentic, we want like the hammy, do you ever have that experience?
No.
Or okay.
No. They if they want me to dial down the accent, I'll do that. But I don't think I've ever got that request.
Okay, because I know with French sometimes people want that, the goofy French guy.
Yeah. Well, no, I understand what you're saying. Actually, for me, it usually works out. What's sometimes difficult for me is if I go in like to do a dog or a cat, and they want something that doesn't sound like a dog or a cat. They want something that's goofy or that's more human, and so I have to make myself bend away from something that's authentic into something that expresses it with the tone that they want.
And how do you, like, when you're doing that process, do you just sit there and kind of try a bunch of noises, or how do you, so can you give us an example? Is that
Well, I mean, if you want a dog bark, do you want a, like a, or, you can humanize it.
I see, okay.
You can make it, more Scooby or more like a dog, and then you can dial in, whether it's small or big or whatever. But it's a little different for every show, and that's kind of what I do as a voice actor.
That's great. So now you said something about philosophy. Is it the case that you studied philosophy?
I was a philosophy major in college.
Okay, so how did you end up...
Practically a minor in German.
So you went from philosophy and German to voice acting. How did that happen?
Well, It both coexisted fine, really. I've done performing all of my life and had a lot of fun doing everything from plays and operas and stand-up and children's theater and improv, singing telegrams, summer stock Shakespeare.
Singing telegrams, really?
Yeah.
Where do you even find that job?
Just look in the yellow pages.
Wow.
Or whatever exists now.
All right.
No, you get money to do a live singing telegram.
Did you have to dance too?
Well, it depends on the character. On what they want the character to do.
Okay.
If it's like, like a nerd stripogram or they're just various characters that they hand you with this horrible script, and then you have to walk into a situation where either they're delighted or they're just completely mortified, and it's really uncomfortable. And then you have to try to get them to pay you your money because the company that hires you is not going to help you with that. It's actually a fairly unpleasant job for me. So I didn't do that for very long.
I was
but I did it
wondering,
for a
so
while.
you did that for a little while. That
Yeah.
sounds horrible to me, but
Well,
I mean...
it's either that or, work in an office.
Yeah, no, hey, I mean, and
And
it
I don't
got
want
you
to
practice.
work in an office. I just don't want to. And so I like performing, and I'm happy to try something stupid in front of people. And I always have been, and that's how I earn my living, is basically that.
Well, and you're fantastic at it, so that's great. So now, okay, I looked at your IMDb page because I always like to see what people have done.
Yeah.
And with voice actors, it's impossible to even remotely cover everything because you guys are so versatile and you do everything.
Yeah, a lot of us are very versatile and do a lot of different kinds of voices. We do impressions. We do, we specialize. I mean, I specialize in sounds. Some, do like women who just do little boy voices. Some are known for the sexy. Some are known for the powerful or the evil or the big. Or maybe they can do them all. So, a lot of us have a lot of different shows that we do. That's how you earn a living as a voice actor, is to do a lot of shows, as opposed to on camera, where you're pretty much just doing one show at a time.
Yeah, well, and as I was looking through your IMDb, I never actually got down to the bottom of your very first gig. So let's talk for a sec. I was scrolling and I was like, I'm never going to get there. Let's just ask you. So what was your first professional gig? And also, what was your very first experience performing in front of people, like as a child or whatever?
My first performing in front of people experience was, I think it was first grade when they asked me to present flowers at the University of Northern Colorado Homecoming Queen Beauty pageant.
Okay.
And I had to present flowers to the gal who was one of the homecoming queen candidates at the university.
Aw.
My second performance was the lead as Oliver in the play Oliver at my school, which was a K-12 school in Greeley, Colorado. And that was my first really acting performing gig was starring in Oliver.
And how old were you, or what grade?
I was in second grade, so
Okay.
I was 8.
Oh wow, okay.
8
And
years
now,
old.
what was your first professional gig, and how did that come about?
My first professional being paid would be performing Oliver again at the Chuck Wagon Dinner Playhouse in Greeley, Colorado. Where they paid me like $13 a night or something to be Oliver.
And how old were you then?
I was probably 10 or 11.
Okay, so you went from second grade to,
Yeah, I did Oliver in Greeley 3 times.
Wow,
I did it once at
okay.
my school, once at the university, which was not paid,
Yeah.
and then once for the Chuck Wagon Dinner Playhouse, which was paid.
That's great.
And that was my first paying gig. But when I was a kid, I did ventriloquism, I did plays. They'd bring me over sort of as the child soprano, the boy soprano at the university for like Bernstein's Mass and various productions, and that was not paid. That was just for fun, and that's how I came to become enamored of acting and performing. Was just doing it for fun.
But it seems like almost, and like you've been doing it for so long. Like, what I know people have asked this of other voice actors. What would you even do if you weren't doing? I mean, it seems like there's no answer for that one. Is there anything else you'd want to do if you weren't performing?
I don't know. I like. I don't really know.
That's okay. That's fair.
I don't know what I'd do.
So, what was your first voice acting gig that was a professional voice acting thing?
My first paid voice acting gig was doing a non-union commercial in Colorado Springs for Mexicana Airlines in a horrible Spanish accent.
Okay.
And that was my first voiceover gig, if I remember correctly. It was terrible. It was truly terrible, but I got paid to do not my voice as in a commercial. That's how it started.
And it's all experience, so
Oh, it's all experience.
Which is
whether you're paid or not, it's experience.
Yeah.
That's the best teacher. That's what you want is you need experience, not necessarily classroom study, although that can be a very good thing. But you got to get in front of an audience, and you got to convince people to give you money to do what you like to do.
Now, you were saying that you're known for creatures, which I, of course, knew and appreciate. So can I ask you, how do you do that, the crickets? How do you do
The cricket's
crickets?
done with the back of the tongue against a soft palate, like you're gargling. It's very, very relaxed back there. You can do it other ways too. Actually, you can do it in the front of the mouth, but I do it in the back of the mouth, like that. And then while I'm whistling, I dial in the uvula, and then I whistle with an inhale, which is a higher whistle for me. And then I just do it in reverse.
I love the crickets. That's my favorite.
Everybody likes the crickets.
Well, why wouldn't you? So,
except for a writer. A writer doesn't like the crickets.
Oh, what? Because then there are crickets going on. In
Yeah,
the,
well, you insert the crickets when there's a pause or when the joke falls flat.
Yeah.
And so
writers
don't like the crickets. That one thing I've learned.
That makes sense. Now you do tons and tons and tons of creatures. Okay, so we were talking about if there was any particular creature that might have been really difficult to come up with the sound, or that really stresses your voice or your.
Well, roaring and screaming, like you often do in video games, can be really taxing on the voice, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't tear up my voice. That's done by relying on not the voice, by relying on like the throat. So instead of going you're going like that, where I'm using not just my voice but other things to make the sound or the effort. And then you can also, it also helps too to use it on an inhale sometimes, because that can get you a lot of sound, but it's just not as hard on the voice.
Okay.
That. It's taxing on the voice, but not terribly so.
Yeah. Do you whenever you do that in public and people smile like I'm smiling right now, do you get a big kick out of that?
I don't do it in public, and when I do, they don't smile.
They don't smile? I'm getting a huge kick out of this. So,
here they do.
Yeah.
It's got to be set up right. Otherwise, there's something wrong. There's something obviously wrong, and they don't smile.
Well, and I was going to ask too, because a lot of voice actors are known for their voices that they do, like if John DiMaggio doing Bender or something. Yeah. But you, and as I was looking at your IMDb, it's like additional voices, animal sounds, all of that. So what's it like to be one of the voice actors who's not as much known for a particular speaking voice, and to be like the creature guy, like you and Frank Welker and a couple other folks in the business?
I love that. I'm happy not to be known for anything. I don't need to be known at all. It's not really on my agenda. It doesn't serve my life to be known, other than maybe professionally, in professional circles, for people to know that I do creature and animal sounds. Right. But that's part of the appeal of a voice acting career, is that you're not saddled with fame, and you don't have to. Well, you can live a relatively normal life, and have normal relationships, and have to deal with your own human limitations in a more immediate way than you do in the sort of mediated, buffered world that a famous person has to cope with.
That's cool.
So that's part of why I like voice acting. That's part of why I was drawn to it. Is that in particular.
Has that changed any for you since the internet and videos and YouTube and all of that has become, like, do people recognize you more now?
I can still go shopping at a grocery store and nobody knows who the heck I am.
Okay.
So no. But there's a couple more people at a con, at a convention that recognize me. That's fine. But for the most part, they don't, and that's okay.
Okay, but you do have now at least a few, obviously, but particularly with the Clone Wars. You were saying the other day that was a strange experience for you because it's, more of the. So can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, well, as I was establishing, when you're establishing your career in whatever you're doing, you kind of start with your default strength, and that for me tended to be more wacky or comedic character roles that were more broad or just cartoony, and I still have that in my wheelhouse, but when I auditioned for and got on Clone Wars, which is a straight ahead soldier. That is a normal human being that is as straight ahead as you can imagine. There's nothing bizarre or strange about a clone. They are a soldier and a human, and that is what is interesting about them.
Right.
And so I would never have cast myself in doing that kind of a role at that time. That was kind of a mental limitation I had imposed upon myself just because of what I'd been doing and what worked.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of opened up for me the realization that I can do normal, that I can do normal and just variations of normal, and the acting challenge of applying the gradation of character to the clones was really opened up my my mind in terms of what I can do and how I look at what I can do. So from that, I would occasionally, like I would get a villain character. Yeah, for instance, Tarlok in Legend of Korra.
Mm-hmm.
Tarlok, he speaks mostly as I do, but he is a character who is duplicitous, and you're not always sure what he's going to do. If he's friendly, or if he's evil, or what's up with him. So, and that was another just straight ahead character who was kind of unsavory in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I got to do that. Or Ra's al Ghul in the Batman Arkham City.
I was going to ask you about that.
I mean, that's a straight ahead villain.
Yeah,
that's a heavy. And I booked that. Whereas I think a decade ago or so, I don't think I would have even auditioned for it.
Mm-hmm.
No one would have thought to, and I wouldn't have thought to. I would have said, nah, that's not really what I do.
Yeah. Now you work a lot in video games, and you also do a lot of animation. So what's the difference? I mean, I know the stress of the voice. I've heard a lot of people saying that. Is there anything else that's a different experience there? Do you prefer one over the other, or is it?
Well, I like video games in general because I think it's not just an art form, but it's an evolution in how humans communicate
Mm-hmm.
and what they do. That I don't think normal society really understands that.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of established, grown-up society, I don't think they understand what the profundity of what that means in terms of connecting with millions of other people in different countries
Mm-hmm.
and doing something together.
Right.
Like with World of Warcraft or even on Xbox or something like that, where you're literally playing against the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
But you're playing with them as you play against them. It is it's competitive, but it is at the same time cooperative. And I don't know what else we're doing, as nations and countries that is like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a positive thing. It's a positive and necessary thing that has the potential to lead to kind of benevolent connections among societies that we need.
Yeah.
As the world seems to be falling apart, I think it's a thing that can actually it brings large groups of people together
Mm-hmm.
who don't even necessarily speak the same language, and that's something that's unique. It also brings in a lot of different art forms in addition to writing and acting. It also puts music into the ear
Mm-hmm.
of young people who probably aren't getting that because arts and other essential education in this country are being cut because it's not a priority. Education is not a priority in this country, sadly, tragically.
Yeah.
And so I like that it brings music into the mind and into the ear, as do many of the projects that we have here at Comic-Con do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the X-Men feature film or a Halo game, the music that you're hearing, this sort of 19th century programmatic music, is really, it's marvelous. It's a marvelous form of expression, and that we should know it and appreciate it and cultivate that in our world, I think.
I think that's great. Yeah. Now, speaking of the con, we had drifted away for a minute, but were you also doing, I think, Wolves? Did you have some work in Wolves?
Yes, I did.
I heard a little rumor yesterday. So what did you do for that? Were you doing wolf sounds?
Yeah, I was doing wolf sounds for Wolves.
Okay, that's great. And tell us a little bit about Wolves.
Well, I don't know what I can tell.
Oh,
about
okay,
it.
okay.
But it's a David Hayter's project.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great kind of a werewolf type project.
Uh-huh.
It's got a lot of wolves in there, and they brought me in to do some wolves.
Very cool.
That kind of stuff.
I get such a kick out of that.
That kind of.
That's
Love that
great.
stuff.
That's fantastic. So, are there any other new projects that we should be keeping an eye out for that you are working on right now? I know Wolves is a great one to look for.
You know that I wish there were more that I could talk about, because I mean most of the stuff that continues. I continue to do a lot of stuff for Disney and for Phineas and Ferb and Jake and the Neverland Pirates and lots of shows that kids really like.
And for Jake and the Neverland Pirates, I know you were the TikTok croc, right?
I'm the croc.
Yeah,
I'm a lot of.
and you're-
I'm pretty much the animals. in
Okay.
that. Whether it's a bee or a plant or a lizard or a bug or whatever it is, they call me in to do that.
Yeah. What does it make you feel like if you're watching a show that you've done and it's like, there's people talking and you are all of the background noise? I mean, what does that feel like for you?
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun to be in there, and I mean, I like it. As I said before, I like it best if people don't realize that's what that is. That there's a human doing that. The goal would be for it to sound natural and seamless and invisible, sort of like a special effect.
Yeah.
What you want. You don't want an audience member to think about a special effect. You want them to experience the scene more accurately, to what your vision is as a creator. And that's what I want to be as a voice actor who adds the weird or the animal or the alien is to make it feel like this is an organic part of what the story is. Not that it's like, oh, who's that guy doing that sound? That's what I don't want.
I think you succeed very well because I would never know. So thank you so much, Dee. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, you're
I hope
welcome.
you have a great rest of the day of the con.
Yes, I shall.
Oh, and before we go, can you say to everyone,
Yes.
please, give ComicMix a shout out?
Hello, everyone. This is Dee Bradley Baker, admonishing you to go check out ComicMix.com.
That was fantastic. Thank you.